Well, I remember when Shack started because that was basically Quake. Um, like a lot of sites, like Blues and everything, was started when Quake, even some places started before Quake was released. You know, like I think there was a Slipgate Central and some other sites that like Quake Talk 95 came out, and that was like all of the IRC logs that had ever been like that had ever been saved where we spoke about Quake. So people were like, it was building up, and then Sugar Shack started,
Scary Sugar Shack,
and
yeah.
yeah, and Steve just, he made a really great site. It was really, really nice. It had all the news everybody wanted to read, which was like in the shooter community back then, that was like every day, that was the first thing that you read. You get on your computer and then fire up Shacknews. What is here? I think it was called Sugar Shack back then, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
I think so. Yeah. He reached out to you for screenshots. He like asked specifically for screenshots to put. I don't know if it was you directly or someone at the company was asking for screenshots. It was one of the first places in the world to post screenshots of a game before it was out
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I had a zip file of a bunch of Quake shots that were like some of them because it was, I guess, more relatable to people at that time because Quake wasn't out. Um, there were level like I had made parts of Doom's E1M5 and I made them in Quake and then with lighting and shadows and all that stuff and I sent them to the site so they could put those up and people could go, here's a Doom shot and here's a Quake shot, which is insane. And also like there's like the dragon, which never appeared in the game, but it was in the screenshots.
Did you have a chatty account? Do you remember what your username was on the site back in the day?
I think we were just Romero. That's usually what my username was back then.
Like, what industry changes have surprised you over the last 25 years?
I think at the very beginning, I think Dave Perry was like this. He knew what was coming, I guess, when he started Gaikai. And for me, I'm like, why would I want to play a game where I'm sending my keyboard and mouse input over the internet to some computer running somewhere and then it sends video over? I have a good computer. I shouldn't be doing that. But now, after all of the internet speed ups and all of the hardware assist on that end, um, having having services where you can play games that just they're not for sale anymore, maybe they're old games, having those things available to just play. And now with like GeForce Live or GeForce Now, I think it's called, that thing is fast. I'm really surprised at how fast it feels. Like you're almost playing the game on your machine, which is pretty great. um, so it's cool. I would never use a service like that, but I can understand that people that don't have, like really expensive systems would love to play something that can run on some other system and just send the graphics over. And so it
Right,
really looks like it's awesome.
right.
So that was surprising. Minecraft was massively surprising when it came out. It was just not, unexpected, and really a lot of games came after Minecraft that were trying to be like Minecraft. Lots of really cool stuff with Valheim being the latest and greatest of taking, Minecraft's design aesthetic and creating more of a game, structure around it. Um, VR's staying, strong for so long. The fact that, that so much money's been put into it, um, and for gaming, where I think the applications are even greater outside of gaming, and that's probably the reason why it's still strong because Facebook isn't like a gaming company. So, you know, but the Oculus is really great. It's got amazing technology and everything. So, yeah, so VR coming back and becoming, like way better than it was. Um, Geez, the amount of business models there are now
Oh
with
my god,
free to
free to
play
play
slash
games as
shareware,
service. Oh my god, yeah.
microtrans, games as service, subscriptions, like
Crossplay,
year
cross
two.
save.
Yeah. Cloud saves. Um, So yeah, it's that part's not too surprising, but I think that the business models I think were pretty surprising that there's so many different ways. Even World of Warcraft has a few different ways to pay for it. Like if you want to pay a subscription, you buy a token, buy a time token. So yeah, so you see games using multiple strategies like a yearly season pass kind of thing, in addition to some microtrans if you want some other stuff. So yeah, lots of cool stuff going on. I'm just happy that there's so much support for that kind of for design to take advantage of all of these things.
And then, Shacknews was founded in 1996, and we're reflecting how the industry used to be back in the day and how it's changed since then. What are some development practices that you used in 1996?
One thing we did not use was source control. So, not, even with Quake, we did not have source control, which now everybody has. Like, well, like you edit software, you edit your code, and then you check it into a source repository that's backed up and all kinds of stuff. You can't lose your code that way. We never had anything like that. If the hard drive crashed on the server, you would try to piece it all together from everyone's individual hard drives, which never happened, by the way. So it was actually, you know, it's not as bad as it sounds, not having source control. Um, but that was a thing we did not have back then. What we have now is producers. We didn't even use producers back then, just because we knew how to produce a game. We knew how to make them and put them out. And our team was so small. There's no reason to have like a whole, management structure. I mean, Doom was five of us mostly, and basically hiring a sixth for the last 4 months, and then Quake was 10 of us, nine mostly. Um, so still small teams, and we were all in a room at the very end anyway, so there's no reason to have producers. That would have been super annoying to have a producer. It's like you're not working on the game, get out of here. That was what it was like back then.
What are some
Um,
development practices that you miss from that era, 25 years ago? Do you miss anything that, things you did
yeah,
back then a certain way?
I miss no
Not having
producers.
producers.
The thing is, like, I'm still working on multiple games right now, and I do a lot of work on those games. So I get to do a lot of what I used to do: programming, sound effects, design, like you name it. Even on Empire of Sin, I got to do design. I did like the level blockouts for all the areas where people do combat. I did all the audio in the entire game. Um, with production, I was the producer for 2.5 years. Like biz stuff. Like I've done a ton on that game, and then the other games I do even more, which is almost like all of it, like Sigil, and we have a new Dangerous Dave box thing coming out. Um, but yeah, we I
You became what you hated. You became a producer in a certain
it's
way.
funny. The funny thing is, as a producer, well, the funny thing is this: when I was a producer, I was also coding, and I was also doing all the audio, and I was doing all this other stuff. So it's like a productive producer.
You get
And the
on your
thing is,
own ass and
nowadays,
yell at you and stuff in the mirror, right? If you're behind, you're like, you need to step up or I'm writing you up. And then you get back to your
yeah,
desk.
exactly. Nowadays, our producers are so busy because the teams are bigger, and they are so busy, and they do such a good job. Like actual producers do a much better job than I did at producing. Um, Nowadays it's great. Jira and just keeping track of everybody's stuff and their velocities and rescheduling all this stuff. So production, I still would never want to be a producer, but they're they're really valuable when you have a big team.
What are some modern development practices you use today that you feel are superior to what you used 10, 15, 25 years ago?
Geez, superior. That's really hard to answer because things actually were better in certain ways back then for programming. Like right, like now, unless if you're programming in a scripting language, you can't just like set a breakpoint a lot of times. You have to basically print debug stuff. But back in the day, when it was mostly C or assembly language, you just put a breakpoint, Or if you knew that memory was corrupted somewhere, you have a memory breakpoint. So if that memory is touched, the code just stops there, and you can see what instruction touched that code, and go, what? The pointer's corrupted or something? Why is the pointer there? Um, so some of the stuff back then was better, and also like debugging was better. Like people were really good at debugging. It kind of blows me away that in 1980, in the 80s when I was going to high school, they had programming classes. But if you go to high school anywhere now, there aren't any programming classes. And if you go to college or university and you're learning how to code, they don't teach you how to debug, which is what you're doing all the time when you're learning how to code. Like you don't know, like there's so much you don't know, you're learning. So your code will be broken most of the time and you need to debug to fix it, but they don't teach debugging. It blows me away, like one of the most fundamental things that you need to know. So like back then, I'd say the programming education was better. You had more control over debugging, and you kept things really simple. And nowadays, there's a lot of abstraction and there's a lot of let's just create a new API because I felt like doing it. It's like we don't need another Redis. We don't need another, bit of this back end code. Someone's already done it. Oh, but we did it with a twist. And also C++ wasn't as jacked up as it is nowadays.
That's true. That's true. It's insane now. Yeah, stuff you can do in that engine, in that coding software.
In that language, yeah, it's like version 20.
Yeah.
No.
So what are some trends over the last 25 years that you remember as being big steps forward in the industry? And that can be in development, distribution, marketing, customer engagement, anything like that.
Well, I remember it was probably E3 of 96 where everything was 3D. And before that, it was not. Doom and the games that followed Doom uh, basically sparked the 3D revolution, and everybody had to do it. And I remember um, seeing games like Donkey Kong Country trying to approximate 3D, like with pre-rendered
Yeah,
stuff.
pre-rendered
Um,
sprites and like the weird tech, all this. People were experimenting back then, with different
yeah,
ways to do
experimenting.
things.
But then when real 3D games were happening, it's like we have to be competitive. Like there was Primal Rage and all these games that were coming out, a lot of 2D stuff. and and then it was like forget that, bam, 1996, all 3D everything. So it was just like I was blown away at that E3, just going, this is crazy. I love it. Everything's 3D now. This is awesome. But I was surprised at the fact that everything went 3D in 1 year, like it just switched. So that was pretty surprising. Um, Surprising when id sold in 2008. I think it was 8. Um, No, it was even earlier, wasn't it? No, I don't think it was 2008 to ZeniMax.
Yeah, they
So I
own
was
they own your
surprised.
they own your IP now, sir.
Microsoft owns it now.
Nice. Oh, that's true. They
And that
bought. Yeah,
was
that's true. They do.
that's
Yeah.
right. So Microsoft, which Bill Gates had said, before, I was thinking about buying id Software, and it never happened, but now now it happened. He's not even there.
Gaming hardware and software has changed so much since 1996. What aspects of the industry do you feel need more work before we turn our attention to what's next?
I don't know if I can say that there's anything that's not being focused on right now because games are so huge and the industry is so massive, there's so many teams working on so many things. Like the middleware industry knows it's got, it's what new tool can I make that people could use? Like that is what the middleware industry is like right now. So there are so many tools. It's like game engines now. You don't have to pay tons of money to get Unreal. It's free. So that was amazing. The switch to it's basically because of Unity, right? Because Unity forced them. But it's great that that happened. Um, when we started putting shareware out that was really good, uh, demo discs appeared on the fronts of magazines, and you could finally look at games and see them before playing them because before that point you had to really trust the back of the box.
Yeah, you really couldn't rent a computer game. You know what I mean? Like you had to just
No,
that was it.
you
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 had
had
to.
to buy it
Yep.
full price. You had to look at the box and hope, and whatever idea of your game that you had in your head, you get on the computer and install it, and it's like wah wah wah. So nowadays, try before you buy. It's amazing. But yeah, there's so many engines. There's so much work on middleware. There's work on just I want to make I want to make something. Oh, look at all the marketplace assets. Look at all the graphics. Look at all the networking already built in. Look at all the, I mean, the greatest thing is there's so much support around the technology of game development that you can really focus on the design of it and create pretty much anything that you can think of, and all the pieces are already there. It's like I need somebody to create models and animate them, whatever. Outsource studios all over the world, like thousands of them. I need to. You can just do this as one person too. You can just outsource everything if you wanted to. Uh, so yeah, it's great. You don't need to have a team together in your room. You can just outsource the team.
Where would you like to see video games go in the future? I mean, you're working on four right
Um,
now, so I mean, like,
I know, I know. Well, I can't. I mean, other than they're going and there are always new designs. People are being influenced all over the place by other people's stuff. Um, so I'm not where they need to go is where they're going. They're going along the path that makes sense. The only thing that could change the logical incremental steps forward that are happening anyway is a breakout unknown hit like Minecraft was when it came out. Something that nobody had had thought of. Like when the Facebook game bubble began, like wow, okay, so I never thought that people would be playing games on Facebook, but I remember making a game on Facebook, and it was probably the most people ever playing one of my games I've ever made. 25 million people per month playing a game on Facebook. That's crazy. It's not my demographic, but but it was a thing. It was a thing to do. But like a surprising thing that comes up like that, it's you just watch for it and take advantage of it. Like I didn't take advantage of the iPhone when it came out. I love the iPhone, but I didn't jump on the App Store like Brian Greenstone as an example. He's an Apple II programmer from back in the day, but as soon as the store was ready, he had tons of games out there. So yeah, just taking advantage of the latest thing that's happening.
and just for me, because I'm curious. I mean, obviously, you pioneered like a lot of design practices. There are games that still clone your designs, today. Do you feel any pressure when you're making a game or working on a game, or when you meet someone asking, for design advice? Because arguably, you're like the grandfather of first-person shooters. You know what I mean? Like you really did put them on the map. I'm just curious if like, I don't know, like how you feel about that.
Yeah, it's great, and I do have tons of people asking for advice and reviewing stuff, and I'm busy doing a million things, and a lot of it has to do with just I can give people feedback on stuff. So, what are you trying to get at? You might be able to get at it like this. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's like anybody that's worked for a long time doing something, there's just lots of opportunity and you just stay on top of what's going on. Um, and like I not only am working on tons of stuff, I don't, before COVID, before COVID, I wasn't at work 100% of the time because I would go out and I'd speak and I would do conferences and I'd do deathmatch tournaments I still would get paid to play Doom against a bunch of people. And it's great because people aren't playing Doom all the time, so it's easy for me to beat them all the time. But now there are some really good people online, and my I just played Decino not that long ago, and yeah, he beat me. He's really really good. But yeah, so I still do that stuff. The funny thing, like our office, because I play Quake Deathmatch, Quake One Deathmatch. Um, our office was like, "Huh, what's that?" It's like, well, it's this really fast game. It's really fun, and everybody started playing Quake at lunch, and I played mostly on Thursdays, basically doing deathmatch tournament with my lead programmer, who's almost like esports level. So we play, and now the whole office is playing Quake, yelling, and and it's pretty great. But yeah, I mostly play. I think if just because I love shooters, and I love World of Warcraft open world stuff. Ghost Recon Breakpoint's the game that I've been spending a ton of time on. Open world tactical shooter. And it's like to see shooters when they all splintered off into different directions. I love the tactical direction. I love Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six. I play Siege. Um, so yeah, I jump in all kinds of stuff, and just to see the thing. There's a lot of just variations on the same kind of designs that people have seen for a while, but with something kind of new in the setup or specific design restrictions, like Battle Royale coming out was cool. It's like, oh, that's deathmatch with 100 people on a big map. Oh, but now it closes in. Okay, and you can jump out of a plane when you start. But it's cool. Like this, there aren't giant like in multiplayer gaming. There has not been a giant change from things that we've seen. They're like little incremental baby steps forward in different features and in stuff, but nothing that's gone. Oh my God, everything's different. Although you could say Battle Royale was a big hit, it was still a deathmatch with a bigger map and more people. But nothing has drastically changed multiplayer yet, and I think that something will. I mean, this happens.
I mean, VR has come closer. A couple like first-person shooters in VR that are pretty cool. That my friends play all the time. I forget what the one's called, but it's kind of a tactical one. It's a completely in VR, and you actually move. It's a really they love playing that. I don't have a VR headset, but they talk about it all the time. I forget what it's called, but
I'll have to Google that because I want to try it.
yeah, it's cool. And to switch weapons, you have to like actually pull the weapons out. It's a lot slower than than other shooters because it has to be. But
tactical, yeah.
Yeah, it's
It has to be slower. Like a tactical shooter is perfect for VR because you have to walk, otherwise you throw up. So so you're going really slow and doing all the movements is a tactical thing, right? Making you do every little detail to get that. That would be interesting if it's good enough. But Ghost Recon Breakpoint is really, really, really good. But I'd like to see some VR just in case. This is John Romero. Do it for Shack News.